Morning, everybody.
Morning.
How's everybody?
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, first question is, how many ounces are in a gallon? Anybody know? 128. 128. That's just to see if you're awake.
It's 8 times 16.
I'm sorry?
I didn't say anything.
Okay. She's like, what's that? How many of you made chowder? Most of you. Good. Any particular flavor or kind that you like? Clam? Manhattan? Okay. New England style?
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody know what New England style means
Milk?
or is? Raise your hand if you want to say. Correct. Not with tomato. It's cream based or milk based, depending on your preference. Does anybody know where the New England style chowder originated? Wrong.
Used to call it Boston.
Newfoundland. Newfoundland. The fishermen over there used to. Is the mic working? Okay. Okay. All right. Sorry, I thought this mic was for everybody. All the fishermen used to just, after the day's catch, would, when they got back to the mainland, throw whatever fish, seafood, whatever the catch of the day was. And then, because root vegetables were plentiful, often potatoes, celery, carrots, onion would go into it, or whatever vegetables were available at that time. So that's where it started. Obviously, it has evolved, and because of our digital life now, it evolves daily, sometimes. So, chowder, if you're ever in New England, they get offended if you ask for a spoon, oftentimes, because it's supposed to be a stew-like consistency. A good New England chowder, clam chowder especially, should be eaten with a fork if it's made properly. That's what the old Bostonians will tell you. Of course, the restaurants will give you a spoon and a fork. So, did you have a question, ma'am? I'm sorry? That's right. Or you could ask for extra bread. You could do that too. Okay, so when we make a chowder, you can, if you have a lot of time, you can cut your vegetables and your fish in large pieces. If you don't have a lot of time and you want to decrease the amount of time that it takes for you to make your chowder, cut everything small. Or if you like your chowder chunky, cut it large. It's totally up to you how you like to do it. Obviously, when you cut your potatoes large, and when I say large, I'm talking like that. Okay? That's what we call in the industry a large dice. In between, medium dice, like that. Okay? Now I don't know if you want me to pass these around. Okay? And then the next size, can you guess? Small. It's like that. Okay? And I wouldn't go any smaller than small. You could do a fine dice, but then your guests are going to be like, what is this? Okay? And we like to use at the restaurant Yukon Golds. And again, that can be a personal preference if you like reds or russet potatoes. Russet potatoes have a little less starch than what the Yukon Golds do, but the Yukon Golds give the chowder a nice creamy, kind of adds to that creamy texture. And it's a little less noticeable than like if you use a russet potato. Okay. So I'm going to start off here heating up my pot, and I'm going to add some butter. Why do I use butter instead of vegetable oil or canola oil or olive oil? It what?
It tastes good.
Yes, it does. Is that from personal experience? Are you one of the ones that go around the shopping stores and sneak a taste of the butter? No, it's what we refer to as flavor. The flavor is in the fat. That's what us chefs say. And butter has a richer flavor compared to if you just use olive oil or any of the other oils. It has a little flavor, but the butter's got the milk solids and the salt in it. It's just makes it more creamy. If you're gonna eat a good New England style chowder, you want the fat. You're not eating the chowder because you're on a diet. Now you can make a chowder. Let's say, for example, if you're lactose intolerant or you have somebody in your family that cannot have gluten, there are other products available on the market that you can create your recipe and use those ingredients to make a chowder. So there are those alternatives, and if you're interested in some of those ideas, I'm available after the demo today, and I'd be more than happy to help you with that. So.
Are you using salted or unsalted butter?
I'm using salted. It doesn't matter. You're going to adjust the seasoning at the end anyways. The salted just means I have to use less salt at the end. Okay. If you use unsalted, you're going to have to add salt at the end.
Did you peel?
No. I prefer not to peel the potatoes because a lot of the nutritional value is in the skin. Now, if I were to use a russet potato, I would peel those, just because the russet skin is a little tougher, chewier, gets stuck in people's teeth. So when you taking a picture later, Uncle Ralph looks like he's missing a tooth, but really it's from that russet potato.
How many servings is this recipe?
I'm sorry?
How many servings is this recipe?
This recipe? Very good question. It depends on what your serving size is. So, for example, if you're going to serve a bowl, which typically a bowl is 12 ounces, you're going to get 16 out of this recipe. Now, The other thing that determines your yield is how you prepare it. What I mean by that is, let's say you put all the vegetables in there, and all of a sudden you notice some of them are burning around the edges. And so you hurriedly pull some of those out. Okay? That's going to affect how much soup you wind up with at the end. It also depends on how long you cook everything. The longer you cook it, the more moisture you lose through the atmosphere. And so that's going to lessen your yield just a little bit, not too much. So I'm adding my onions, celery, and garlic. Now, there's some tricks that we use in the trade that you can use at home as well to help speed up or simplify the process for yourself. One of them is we can add the potatoes with the other vegetables, or in a separate pot, you can add them to your fish stock, okay? Or what we call a fish fumet.
How do you spell that?
Fumet, F-U-M-E. Actually, it's an E accent aigu. To properly make a fish stock, you can use salmon bellies, the bones, skin. You can even use the heads. And you want to cover all of those bones, skin, whatever, with cold water. And the reason why we use cold water, start off with cold water, does anybody know? When you use hot water out of your faucet, hot water picks up a lot of the impurities in the pipes or the water heaters and carries those into whatever you're making. Okay? So that's why a lot of times when you see hot water, it comes out cloudy. It's from the impurities that the water's bringing in. Most of the impurities you can't see with the naked eye, but whatever's in your water heater, I guarantee is going to come to your pot eventually. So when you make a stock, yes, ma'am.
Could you use a shrimp stock instead of a fish stock?
Absolutely. Yeah, and you can make any type of stock you want. Good question. A lot of times, our stock will change from day to day or week to week, just depending on what fish and seafood we use that particular week. Let's say, for example, we had a catering function, and we have a bunch of shrimp shells, or lobster, or crab, or clams. We'll incorporate that into our chowder. Now, when we do that, we definitely let our guests know that, because we have a lot of we'll have a lot of different guests that may have specific allergies. So it's whenever you do that, make sure you let your guests know that. So, but you can use any type of fish or seafood. The other thing I like to do too is, how many of you smoke your own salmon? Okay, so you can add a little bit of that to it. Have any of you ever smoked a whole side of salmon and left the skin on?
Oh yeah.
Yeah? So what you can do is, if you don't want to add the smoked salmon itself, take that skin, add it to your stock. Okay? And when you do your stock, bring it to a boil, lower it to a simmer. Do not let it continue to boil. When you let it continue to boil, you kill a lot of the nutritional value and you actually change the flavor. A lot of the nutritional value actually goes up into the atmosphere. You just lose it. And then you want to simmer it for 20 minutes. You can go a little longer if you want, but I wouldn't go much longer than that. Fish and seafood is not like chicken and beef, where the bones and everything is much bigger, so it takes a lot longer to pull all of the nutritional value and extract everything from the bone marrow and everything from the beef bones.
Okay, I have a question. If we don't have all of that stuff laying around our house, well, not laying around, but anyway.
I hope you don't have it laying around.
If we don't have all that stuff to make our own stock, is there some place in town where you can buy good fish stock?
I don't know. I've never looked to buy fish stock. I would say that when you buy your fish, buy a whole side, okay? Because then you can take the skin off and you can use that to make your stock. So when you buy your halibut, your salmon, cod, pollock, any type of fish that you buy, or seafood, if you buy shrimp, don't buy them peeled. Buy them with their shells on.
When you cook your shrimp in water and then you peel them yourself, you can just keep that water as your stock, can you?
You can, but I would suggest peeling your shrimp before you cook them, because then you're not gonna. With shrimp, you have to be careful not to overcook,
Right.
because you're gonna make them tough and chewy. So I would suggest peeling your shrimp first, putting the shells in your pot, holding your shrimp off to a later time in your recipe. Shrimp is one of those things that I would add at the very last, so that you don't make your shrimp real chewy. And cut them up into smaller pieces, or you could leave them whole. It just depends. Alaska spots and stripes are really good. You can leave those whole. They're not too big. But if you bring in any of the shrimp from Thailand or Mexico or anything like that, I would definitely cut them into smaller pieces.
Is there any reason to eat or not to eat the salmon skin?
Any reason to?
To eat or not to eat the salmon skin? Just strong flavor.
There's no reason at all. Are you before cooking it or after?
Well, no, after cooking.
Okay. No, after cooking it, you can definitely eat it. I know I have some Alaska Native friends that after they get the fish, they cook the whole thing, head and everything, and make us, they call it a salmon soup. And there's nothing wrong with it. So it has a lot of nutritional value. Yeah.
So in fish stock, you don't put any aromatics. Is that what I'm hearing?
Not for this recipe. I don't. You want to be real careful putting aromatics into your fish stock, because fish is a flavor all on its own. It's not like a beef or a chicken stock that it will enhance the flavor. If you put aromatics in here, it may overpower your recipe. Okay, so that's why I don't put bay leaf or thyme or anything in here because number one, you're not cooking it that long, so the amount that you're going to extract from it's not going to be a lot, but it's going to be too much for the flavor that you're going after. You don't want your chowder tasting like thyme or like bay leaf.
So no celery leaves or anything like that either.
I'm sorry?
No celery leaves.
Celery leaves are okay.
Okay.
They're not as pungent as like the thyme and stuff like that. The other thing that you have to be careful with is, and this is in cooking in general, but especially with soups and sauces, the difference between dried herbs and fresh herbs. Dried herbs are 5 times more powerful than fresh herbs. 5 times. So a lot of people make the mistake of putting the same amount of dried herb as they would a fresh herb. And had any of you had something that tastes like a lot of thyme or real herby, earthy flavor? That's why. Too much of the dried herb. So if you cut your potatoes a day ahead and you leave them in water overnight, don't throw away that water. Save that water. Why?
Starch,
Why else?
flavors, minerals,
Right. Because what happened?
they leach down into the water.
Right. So any vegetables, I know a lot of people like to cut celery and carrots the day ahead and leave them in water. Have you ever noticed that the water is almost kind of has an orange hue to it or a cloudy hue? It's because the flavor and the nutrients have leached into that water. So now those carrot sticks and celery sticks don't have the same taste or the same flavor as what they did. Yeah, they're a little bit crisper because they just soaked up a bunch of water. So what I would suggest, if you're going to cut up celery sticks, carrot sticks for your kids or guests, cut them, put them in water, let them sit in cold water for 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how fresh those vegetables are. Then take and hold your hand over that, dump all that water out, okay? Because you just basically refreshed those vegetables. Dump it out, cover it, put it in your fridge. They're gonna taste better, and they're gonna still look good, and they're gonna have the crunch. Any questions?
I have a question. I do like carrot sticks and celery sticks for like for the week, just have in the fridge to use. So then they're not gonna stay nice if I'm not serving them in water for 5 or 6 days, right? I mean, just to eat, hummus or whatever.
Well, what I would suggest is take and put them in a Ziploc plastic bag.
And that will hold us
Yeah,
that long.
sure. Yeah, I wouldn't do like 2 weeks worth,
Yeah,
but
I don't
the
do that one
next
like that
4 or
then.
5 days. Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to let this simmer for a bit to soften up these potatoes. So how many of you have made clam chowder with clams from Homer or anywhere in Alaska? That's my favorite type of clam chowder.
Otters have eaten and Homer clams.
I'm sorry?
The otters have eaten a lot of Homer clams.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't heard that. So they've become a problem down there? The otters?
Well, we have a cabin across the bay that we've got tons of clams, and now there aren't any.
Really?
Yeah, they're gone. And the otter population has exploded.
Okay.
So that, it's a cycle.
What about the mussels?
Same.
Really?
Yeah.
Because there used to be some good mussel farms down there.
They're still producing oysters.
They're still producing? Okay. That's good.
They're hung on the racks.
I'm sorry?
But the mariculture hangs the spat on the racks and they grow in bags and harvest it up.
Okay.
Can you use cockles if you had to? Cockles is a forage clam.
You could.
I think they're a little tougher, maybe.
Yeah, I would definitely cut them smaller.
Right.
Cut them a lot smaller. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, any type of seafood that you come across that is tough, cut it smaller. Makes it easier to eat. Yes, ma'am. I can't hear it.
Do you just have butter in there right now?
There's just butter in here. Yep. Everything's better with butter.
And your heat, you keep adjusting it. Are you adjusting it down enough?
I'm adjusting it up and down. I've never used this particular stove before. So part of cooking is adapting to your environment and adapting to your equipment, learning how it works and the heat. And plus I'm standing here talking at the same time, so it's easy for me to not see what's going on in the pot. At our new location, which is on the corner of Denali and 5th Avenue, we've been there since the 15th of May of last year. We're open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We also put in a private dining room in the operation. It took us about 4 months to clean the place up and get it to where we needed to have it for our type of food and standards. 12 plus years of deep frying food, it's not good. But and we just started this year letting people know where we're at, what we do, because we have, over the course of last year, we made all the changes to the outside of the building as well as the inside of the building. SPS was a big help with that, as far as getting our tables relaminated and repainted the place, new carpet, took the curtains down. Country kitchen. Yep, country kitchen. And we got rid of the buffet. So if you're looking for a buffet, don't come to us. It's incredible to me how many people still come in and I look around. Where's the buffet? It's gone. I point to the bar and I said, it's a liquid buffet now. We have beer and wine. Yes, ma'am. Correct. Was not heated. She is very observant.
How tasty is the fish stock? I mean, I know
I'm sorry?
how tasty is the fish stock? I know I've done crab shell or big pot of crab shell. I don't know what.
How tasty is it?
Well, I mean, how much flavor?
You know, it just depends
Or
on,
how much was the quantity of, how much water, how much?
add enough water to cover what you have in the pot. The more water you go above and beyond the product that you have in the pot, the more diluted your stock is going to be. So let's say, for example, you have ingredients up to here. If you put water all the way up to here, because number one, you're only simmering this for 20 minutes. So that water is not going to reduce down to here. Okay, the water is going to only reduce maybe a quarter of an inch. Okay, so you're going to have all that much water, and the product that you put in there is going to shrink because you're extracting a lot of the protein and the flavor out of there. How many of you have ever actually cooked your skins or made a stock with your fish scrap? Have you ever noticed that? Have you ever chilled it down for the next day? If you do, it'll be very gelatinous, almost like it's jello. Does anybody know why? What causes that?
It's gelatin out of the actual fish you're using, like say salmon skins or elephant skins. It's gels automatically.
Right. Do you know why?
Coming out.
It's the protein.
Oh, the protein.
Okay. Gelatin is nothing more than pure protein.
It's like in a turkey that you have the next day.
Exactly. Or if you make a beef stock, you want it to be gelatinous. That is a sign of a good stock. But fish stocks and seafood stocks are the easiest to make because they don't require as much time. And it's something great that you can make one day, cool it down the next day, and then freeze it. So you can load up your freezer with stock. Because then you can make not just chowders, but you can make any type of soup down the road. Oh, this is cool. It's like a little digital camera or TV on this side. It tells me what burners are on. Okay, so I'm going to show you what the ingredients on the inside of my pot looks like. I'm just going to put a little bit in this bowl. I want you all to pass it around so you can see what I mean by the creamy texture that the Yukon potatoes produce. Especially when you, let me get another bowl. It might take all day to pass that bowl around. Or it might be empty by the time it gets to you. Be careful, it's hot. That's what I heard. You want to look at a potato? All right. So here's some trivia for you. Have you ever bought potatoes and put them in the refrigerator and then wondered why they tasted different? Like a week later? Or you've put them in the bottom of your pantry and wondered why they started growing? With long things sticking out? Potatoes should be stored in a dark, cool climate. With other root vegetables, they're okay. When you start putting them in your fridge with pineapple, tomatoes, mushrooms, they start doing some funky things. The thing about temperatures with potatoes is they're like anything else. They have potatoes, especially russet potatoes, have a lot of starch in them. Okay? When you were all growing up, did any of your parents have root cellars? And do you remember your parents pulling those potatoes out a day or two before they actually used them? Or setting the potatoes in light on the windowsill a day or two before? I don't remember my parents doing that, but I do remember my grandparents doing that. My grandmother did that all the time. The reason why is because you control the amount of starch or sugar that is in that potato by taking it, putting it in the sunlight, or putting it back in the root cellar. With potatoes that have a lot of sugar content, high in sugar content, you want to put them in a cool, dark place. If you want to pull that sugar back out or convert that starch back into sugar, put them back in the daylight. I'm sorry? Oh, it can, well, think of sweet and think of just starch and not very sweet. So in this, I wouldn't want my potatoes sweet. I'd want more starch. Yeah. But if I was doing a vichy swamp, which is a cold potato leaf soup, I'd want my potatoes sweet, not as starchy. I want more of that flavor. If I'm doing a beef stew, I'd want my potatoes sweet versus starchy.
So you leave them out in the daylight for a couple days?
Yeah. I'm sorry? Combination of both. Combination of both. The daylight helps convert it faster. Like if you have a windowsill or just leave it out on your counter for that day or 2 days.
2 days.
Just make sure the cat doesn't bury it.
2 days won't allow the potatoes to green up,
No.
which is not good.
No, I mean, if you do it like the 21st of June for a couple days, they might green up. But this time of year, no, they'll be fine. So did you notice the starch? The creamy texture of the vegetables? Did you smell?
Oh, yeah.
Are you hungry? I'm trusting that nobody licked them and put them back in the bowl. So, see how this is?
Looks good enough to eat.
Sounds like you came with an appetite. Okay, so I'm going to show you, give you a little demo here. So, does anybody know what this is? Okay. It's fresh salmon. Okay. Now, have any of you scaled a salmon? Why?
Why is it ill?
So are you eating it raw? Okay. Well, just a little secret. So when, let me ask you this. When you cut your salmon, you leave the skin on before you cook it? You take the skin off. Okay. So she takes the scales off first, and then she takes the skin off.
But you know what, when you're cleaning fish and stuff, if you don't get those off, you gotta get it. You guys know that. You got scales, got free range scales.
Wow. I want to go fishing with you. No problem. I'll tell you a funny story. My daughter, I used to take her fishing with me since she was 4 months old. She literally, I had a pack that she would sit right here when she was just an infant. And when I was fishing and dip netting, and she would sit right there. So she saw her first salmon when she was 4 months old. And later, when she got older, she went with me, but she would, when she was 6, 7, she would walk up and down the Kenai or Kasilof, wherever we were, up and down the bank, asking the other fishermen, "You gonna keep your eggs?" These guys are like looking at her, you know. But she would go up and down the bank and collect eggs for her dad. That was the easiest and cheapest way for me to get eggs. Well, at that time, I would convert them into bait because back then, bait was legal on the rivers, where today we all know what's going on now. Hopefully I'm hoping that the rivers open back up this next year for fishing.
We should all be at that fisheries meeting right now.
I'm sorry?
Testifying. We should all be at that fisheries meeting today at the Egan Center testifying if we want to keep our fish.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so back to the salmon. In the restaurant, what we do, we pull what's called the pin bones out. And we always tell our guests, I always like the question, is your fish boneless? And my response is, no, we use real fish. So we don't ever guarantee that it's completely boneless because it's impossible sometimes. Especially when we're processing 50 to 100 pounds of fish at a time. You're bound to miss
So
one.
how do you pull out your pin bones? You use little pliers or something? Tweezers?
I like to use tweezers. Some people use needle nose pliers. But you have to go at it at an angle and be very careful. Otherwise, you're going to be, if you squeeze it too hard, you're going to break them off. So I suggest practicing, okay? Because if you're in a hurry and you're trying to do it and you've never done it before, you are going to be really frustrated. Because it's going to take you like 20 times just to try to get that first one out. So after we pull the pin bones out, then we pull the skin off. And I'll show you that. I want to get back to the scales real quick. She thought she was off the hook.
I know I lost that one.
So I've never scaled a salmon. 2 reasons. First one is it's a lot of work. A lot of work. 2, when you cook your salmon and you leave the skin on, when you cook it, the scales melt. The scales melt. So when you make your fish stock or fish fumet, those scales melt in your pot, and that's part of the protein that stays and the flavor. And nutritional.
What do you do about the slime?
You wash it off.
Well, I wash my fish before, but I'm not scaling. I just rinse my fish under cold water. Never use hot water. Use cold water. The thing about salmon skin is it continuously produces that slime. It's a natural thing that the fish produces so that the fish can get through the water. Otherwise, without that slime on the fish, they could never ever swim upstream. That's why they produce that slime. It's natural. It's part of the fish. Yeah, it looks nasty, it looks gooey, it looks like, your kid's runny nose sometimes. But it's part of the fish, it's natural. So what we do is, like when I'm on the riverbank, I'll just take and use the edge of my knife and scrape it off. So this fish right here, okay, even though it's been dead for X amount, and it's been rinsed, it's still producing the slime. It's natural. It's part of the fish. So no matter how many times you rinse it, how many times you scale it, it's still going to produce the slime. Okay? I'm going to put that right back in the pot. See, did you see how fast that turned white? When I just put the edge of my knife there? Because that's hot. That's what we call it. Kind of like an egg white. It's pure protein. So when I go to skin the fish, I start at the tail end. I'm sorry?
I said free range protein.
I want to go looking for those free range scales.
They're expensive.
And then a little trick that you can do that makes it easy to hang on to your salmon. Okay? Make a little slit. Okay? That makes it easy for you to hold on to what? The skin. Okay? So I put my finger there. Okay? Put my knife right there.
What an easy trick.
Okay?
That was the price of admission right there.
I have some fresh scales for you. Okay.
I see a wallet in there.
Would you like to take it home?
Like a big fish tank.
It could be an early Christmas present for you. Okay, any questions? So that's how we do that. And that's how I can skin as many fish as I need to. Just in a matter of 10
Yeah, who
minutes.
taught you that little slit trick?
I learned that from a German chef when I went to the Culinary Institute of America. Her name was Leid Butenkirk. And she was actually on the 1980 Culinary Olympic team. So now I have a skinless and scaleless fish. Okay. And like I said, you can, let's say, for example, you're doing an outdoor barbecue. I would suggest leaving the skin on. Okay? When you go to grill your salmon, which side should you put down on the grill? First. Which side?
Skin side.
Skin?
I
No.
do.
No.
Because then I can peel the rest of it right off. Once it gets heated on that side.
I'm going to beat you every time.
Really? All right.
Put the
Should we
flesh
do it?
side down first
Really?
because you're searing that side of the salmon.
Okay.
You want to sear it to lock in the juices. How many of you grilled salmon and you're like, why is it dry? It was fresh. Why is it? I went to so-and-so's house and their salmon was great. Why is mine dry? Because you started skin side down. So on this side, the juices, you see little white spots on the flesh. Okay? That's the protein wanting to escape. You don't want it to escape. You want it to stay there. You're not making a fish stock on your grill. So you want the protein to stay there. The only way of making sure that it stays there is by searing it, locking those juices in there. It's just like when you're cooking a steak or a chicken breast. How many of you had dry chicken breast? Everybody raise your hand. Okay. That's all we serve at our restaurant is chicken breasts. Yeah, we make sure we scale it first.
How long do you sear?
Till it's done.
No, the
So it's
flesh
all
side.
done?
Till it's done.
Okay.
No?
It depends on the size of fish. And the size of the fish, how low or high it is, as far as your flame. You want to sear it long enough so that you have nice grill marks. Okay? Once you have nice single lines, not double lines, you're not trying to do diamonds. You can do diamonds, but you really need lots of practice doing that. But as long as you have nice, solid lines, then it's seared. Then turn it over and finish it on the skin side. The skin will stick to the grill. You easily take your spatula and lift the fish off. Now you have a beautiful piece of grilled salmon with no white spots on it.
So you don't turn it back over so you can put the grill lines on your skin side? Without the skin now?
No,
You don't?
no. Because that skin protected that salmon.
Right, so
And
it's sealed all the moisture.
It's
from that side.
seared. It's sealed.
Oh, okay.
If you flip it back, if you go to put it back on, you're gonna overcook your salmon. The other little trick that we do in the trade is we cook it till it's like medium rare. Because you have what's called residual heat or carryover heat that will finish it by the time it gets to that table. Okay?
So how, so when
I'm
you
sorry.
put it on the skin side, do you cover your barbecue or do you still leave it open?
It depends on if it's real windy outside, I'll close the lid because it's gonna lower the temperature of your grill. If you're using real wood or mesquite or something like that, I would close the lid as well, because then you're trapping that smoke in there, giving it a little smoky flavor. If it's 80 degrees outside and it's June 21st and it's no wind or nothing, I'd leave it open.
Do you put oil over the fish when you're cooking it, or do you put it on the fish?
Sometimes we'll dredge it in a little oil and put it on real quick. It just depends on your own personal preference. You could use butter, you could use a little oil. Whatever you do, put the oil on the fish, not on the grill. Because when you put it on the grill, then all you have is those seared marks on the fish, and there's no oil in between the bars when you're searing the fish. So you're going to get a very uneven cooking process going there, because the oil helps conduct that heat as well. So any questions on the salmon, sir?
I had read somewhere whether it was one of these fish was just something that you didn't want to start grilling with a hot grill, but you wanted to start with a cold grill and then bring the temperature up. That's what kept that collagen from. If you heat that collagen slowly, it just comes out of the fish. That white stuff that you use.
Well, if you the problem with using a cold grill is you're not going to sear the fish. It's almost like you're just heating the fish up, but you're not searing it.
If you slowly cook the fish and bring it up to temperature, then collagen does not come out of the fish.
No, I think it will come out, just at a slower pace. If you start it with the skin side down, you're still gonna, number one, it's gonna take you a lot longer to cook that fish, and number two, the high heat. Now, when I say high heat, you don't want flames coming up through your grill, but if you just put it on a regular high level, open the lid, and you lay your fish on there, then it's going to sear it. Now, you don't want to leave it there for 5 minutes, but I would say anywhere from 2.5 to 3.5 minutes on that high heat grill. I've never heard of starting it on a low grill.
I can tell you it doesn't work. I mean, I'm used to sort of, I started cooking it, that white stuff is all over the fish. And then I read about we should start with
Right.
cold.
But you started with the skin side down, right?
But the point was I don't get near as much quality.
Right.
to start with.
But you still will lose some. You still will lose some. With searing that side on a high heat, you're gonna lock that in. And you know, try it at home. Start at a medium high heat. It's one of those things that cooking takes practice. The more you practice, the better you're gonna be. Okay. Cooking is not as much of a science as like baking. Baking is more of a science. It has to be more exact. With cooking, there's so many elements as far as your environment, your pot, everything that just can change how your product's going to be.
Are you doing that for something to do, or does that contribute to the creaminess? Well, I didn't mean it.
Wow.
If I was making this at home, I would put it on low and let it cook. And I take a fork, so it's ready. But I know she will when you stir it, and I thought maybe that's a tip.
Well, think about that. So the heat source is on the bottom. If I didn't stir it, everything that was at the top would stay there. Right? So you would have the stuff on the bottom would finish before the stuff on the top. So I stir it to even everything out so that it cooks more evenly.
So you're not breaking it down or anything.
Well, I am breaking it down a little bit because it is the Yukon Gold potatoes. See how that is? I'm after the. Are you paying attention?
It looks different though. It does. It looks so,
Yeah, and that's what I'm after. Is I want. We are making chowder, so it should be super. I'm after that creamy texture. So yes, but it's more so whether if I had these potatoes or the russets or red potatoes, I'd still stir it so that it cooks more even. Okay? It's not like scales where you can just take them off and walk away.
Back to the fish stock. So if you had just had water in that pot and you threw your fish skin in it, and it's a big skin like that, how long would you leave that pot? I mean, you said 20 minutes earlier about like shells, but I wasn't sure that.
Same with the skin. Bring it to a boil, lower it to a simmer. Simmer for 20 minutes. Yep.
Before we go on, can you show us the angle of the fish when you're pulling out the pinwheels? How do you pull out the pinwheels?
Yeah,
What
that's
angle or how do you do it?
they're sticking out that thick side, right? Is that where they're sticking out?
You want me to pass the fish straight at that angle. You want to go the same angle. If you try to go reverse or from the side, they're going to break every time. Because they're joined on the inside here just by a little piece of cartilage, basically. And so you'll feel it tug and you just gently pull. You don't want to jerk, you don't want to force it. And the reason why a lot of us chefs like to use the tweezers, because you can take your tweezers and put them right up on, put the bone in between and push in, so you're pushing the meat away, so you get a better grip on that pin bone, and you can go faster. Okay? Good question.
We grill our fish and then I refrigerate it afterwards for those. And there's always a brown layer between the fish and the skin. Is that good stuff? Why does it turn brown?
That's the fat of the fish. This part here.
That's the really good stuff.
Well,
For your heart.
yes, it has some value to it, but it doesn't look pretty. So that's, again, a personal preference. You can leave it on, leave it off. We always serve the fish with the flesh side, the skin side down, so you don't ever see that. But we don't, if you notice, they didn't leave all of it on. We take about half of it off when we skin it. And it's, if the fish is overcooked, it has a little bit of a bitterness to it. If the fish is cooked just perfect, you don't even notice it. But if the fish is a little overcooked, it does have a little bitterness. So on your recipe, there's two ways that you can do this. And it's, again, it's a personal preference on your fish. Not so much on your clams, because clams don't break down the way fish does. So you can either make your roux in the pot first and then add your fish, or you can add your fish now and then add your flour to make your roux. It's totally your choice. two different thoughts, okay? If you want your fish to stay in large chunks and you don't want it to break up very much, because when you add in the flour and you have to stir it, and then you're stirring it again to cook out the flour just for those few minutes, you're going to break up the fish as it cooks, which is okay. It's just personal preference. If you want big chunks by the time you get to the end of your chowder making process, or if you want a lot of small chunks and you want, the fish to be well blended in the chowder, it's totally your choice. So for today's demo, I'm going to go ahead and add some flour. Is that enough? Should I add some scales? I'm sorry? You would be surprised at that.
No, you guys never add the liquid before you
I'm
make
sorry?
flour. You got all that
Well,
butter
if
in
you
there,
notice,
it's
I'm
not-
stirring it as I'm adding it. And so it is lumpy. There's no scales. I'm really looking for those free range scales. I have never heard of that. Have any of you seen any of the free range scales running around?
Yeah, they sell them at Costco.
Do they? Wow. I'm at Costco almost every day and I haven't seen them yet.
Just kidding.
I didn't hear what you said.
She thought the potatoes were going to thicken it. She was surprised you needed to add flour.
I'm not making potato soup. Sorry. No, if I was making potato soup, yes. I don't want to cook the potatoes down to the point where they're mush, absolute mush. I still want them to have their texture. And I want, when you eat the chowder, I want you to know that that's a chunk of potato. If I was making a potato soup, yes, I would cook them down till they were absolute mush.
Just the way you're stirring it,
So it shows how thick it is. Oh, okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
And what did I call this? What? Roux.
Is it still a
Does anybody know what the definition of a roux is?
Flour and butter. That.
That was a yes or no question.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. What is the definition of a roux?
It's flour and butter or fat, flour and fat cooked together. That's the way it is and then you add the liquid to it.
Okay.
You make the roux first. In Louisiana, when
I
I
didn't
learned how
ask
to
for
make
all
roux,
this.
it was equal
Wow, now I'm getting her
flour
life
and
history.
fat. Flour and fat cooked together.
Okay. Yes, it is. The actual classical definition of a roux is 50% flour, 50% fat in equal proportion by weight.
Right.
Okay?
So that's a question, how do you don't have a scale for flour? How do you determine what a pound?
You can
Can't you use a measuring cup?
you can use a measuring cup. That's going to get you closer than just saying you could, if you're pretty good at holding weights, you could do it by hand, hold a pound of butter here. But I would use a measuring cup. It's not going to be exact, but it's going to be close enough. So 2 cups for every pound. 2 cups of flour for every pound of butter.
Okay, here you've got 2 pounds of flour and 1 pound of butter in your recipe. That's not 50-50.
No, it's not. Very good.
Do you want?
So you don't want it 50-50.
Not in this recipe.
Okay.
I was talking about the classical version, the definition of roux. For this, because we want it thick, it's a chowder. We're not making a sauce. So, and making the roux in the pot. So not only do we have the flour, the butter in there, but we also have the liquid and the moisture from the potatoes, the onions, and the celery. And then I'm going to add the fish, which is going to extract more moisture. So by the time I get done cooking the fish in here, then we're going to have enough of fat and flour so that our roux is thick enough to make our chowder, to cook it out. Does that make sense? If we just did a regular 1 pound of flour, your chowder is still going to turn out. It's just going to be looser. It's going to be more like a soup consistency versus a chowder consistency. Is it okay if I add these free range scales I got here? It's okay. Your secret's safe with me. Okay, does anybody know what surimi is? Fake crab. And what fish is used to make fake crab?
Usually.
I'm sorry?
Pollock.
Pollock. Correct. And why pollock?
It's cheap.
I didn't hear
It's
that.
bycatch.
It accepts the flavor of the crab shell stuff
It
really well because it probably has a name.
pollock has a neutral flavor profile, so it will take on whatever flavor is added to it. So they just add crab extract to it. Now, have any of you ever read the package of surimi? Have any of you noticed that in our great state of Alaska that not everybody sells Alaska surimi?
Yes.
There's unfortunately there's places out there, and I'm not going to name them, but I would strongly suggest that before you buy surimi, read where it comes from, because there's a lot of stuff that comes from international waters and not Alaska waters. And we're all about supporting the Alaska products and Alaska fishermen and farmers. So we try to do that by making sure that we buy a product that's processed here or from here as often as we can. So I just stirred this a little bit, and you see it's still broken up. And it's okay. I mean, you want it to break up because you are making a chowder. So we're going to warm this up a little bit. Any questions?
I noticed that you don't put any pork, any salt pork or bacon.
Right. You can do that. Absolutely. The reason why we don't at the restaurant is because there's a lot of cultures that don't eat pork. And so when you do that, then you cut out that whole segment of people that wouldn't be able to eat your chowder then because there's pork in it. So you can. That's a totally personal preference. I have used salt pork. I've put bacon in my chowder in the past. Definitely, you can do that. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as you can eat it. But yeah, we don't do it at the restaurant, and again, I don't put that in the recipe just because I don't want to offend anybody. And so, yes, ma'am.
Could you suggest a gluten-free version?
Use rice flour, or you could use potato flour. Again,
I'm sorry. You have to watch out for that potato flour because it's really concentrated and it's very heavy and dense.
Yeah.
You might want to try potato starch. Potato starch is a good substitute for wheat in a stew or a soup like this.
yeah.
Sorry.
Well, no, and you're right. And the other thing with some of the potato flours too is you have to read. I mean, the ingredients. Sometimes they incorporate flour in them also. Wheat flour.
Yeah.
And that's to lessen what she was talking about, where the raw potato flour is very strong, very powerful. So, but yeah, some of them will actually do that. But rice flour is definitely a good alternative. Or the other thing you could do too is you can use half Yukon gold potatoes, cook them down till we got potato soup that she was mentioning, and then use either red potatoes or russets. I would suggest red potatoes because they're going to hold up better.
Can I add one more option there?
Sure.
Reduce your cream. Do a full reduction, then add your veggies and your fish, and don't use any flour at all.
Right. But you need a lot more cream.
Yeah.
You need a lot more cream.
Just like the butter.
Because reducing this much cream,
Yeah.
it's not really going to thicken it much. But, another idea to that, and it's much more expensive, but instead of using milk, use heavy cream and reduce it. It's still going to be a little soupy though, because you don't have anything there that's going to bind everything together. Sure.
Sharon?
Congratulations. So I'll see you later today.
Chowder on the menu every day?
Yes. Alaska seafood chowder is on the menu every day. Unless we did run out one day this last summer.
Too many tourists in town.
I'm sorry?
Too many tourists in town.
No. There can never be too many.
Never too many tourists.
Not
Well, for lunch.
I remember 20 years ago when there used to be just hordes of people walking down on the sidewalks and the streets for days at a time. You don't see that today.
No, because they bus them or trade them right out.
Yep, they're loaded directly on buses or the railroad. They're only allowed, all the cruise ships here in town, the people are allowed about 45 minutes. Yeah,
That's true.
they have them dialed right in. It's,
You need to have a bill for free ranging at first.
I think what we need to do is we need to create a shop downtown that that has all of the free range scales. We need to let the tourists know about those free range scales that we have only in Anchorage. And we're gonna make you in charge.
Have you ever had using arrowroot?
Yes, yes.
I read about that in the about chili, you know, you can put arrowroot. What about?
Well, arrowroot is very similar to cornstarch, but they're very temperature sensitive, meaning that if you cook them for very long, like for example this process, they're going to break down. Have any of you made a sauce with cornstarch or thickened it with cornstarch and then went and reheated it the next day? And you're like, what happened? You know, or you cooked it 5 minutes longer than what you usually do, and it's back to the way it was, liquid again. It's because cornstarch, more so than arrowroot, is very temperature sensitive. So if you cook it too high of a heat for too long, it's going to break down. What happens is those molecules, those fat molecules bonded with the starch molecules, they expand to the point where they just burst. So they're not going to hold anything anymore. Whereas with a roux, which is the fat and flour, wheat molecules are much stronger, take a lot more abuse. So that's why you don't find that as often with a roux.
I just never been stupid. Sounded like that before.
I haven't either.
I'm learning one thing.
Basically, you're keeping all the flavors in the pot.
Right.
Are you cooking today? Are you cooking at a much lower temperature than you usually do because the times here are, you know, pretty far off?
Are you going by the times on the recipe? Yes, I'm going much slower because I'm talking
A
and
much lower temperature
Yeah,
on everything.
yeah. I'm not just standing here and just doing chowder and nobody's talking to me. Or I'm doing other projects back and forth. No, usually my flame is on high and I'm rocking and rolling.
Yeah. So actually, the other part of that question was, I was wondering if you were just cooking it consistently at a lower temperature, or if you were turning off your fire on and off.
I had it off earlier while I was hearing about the free range scales
Okay.
because I had never heard about those before. I was very interested.
Okay, so that's a real, yeah, you're
Yeah,
really
so
monitoring your heat.
it- You know, when you're cooking, it's kind of like when you're at home. If your kids or your grandkids are coming over, you're going to turn everything off because you know that you're not going to be able to give it 100% of your attention to it. Or you're trying to get everything done before they come over or before your guests get there. So you're busy, frantic, focused on what you're doing. Here I'm doing that. So I'm going to pass around 2 bowls. One that's got the free range scales. And the other one that's got the fish stock. So you can see. And you want your stock when it's heated, you want it clear. if you boil your stock, it's going to get cloudy on you. If you boil it for 20 minutes, it's going to be cloudy.
So is that just aesthetics or is it flavor also?
On what?
The stock, whether it's clear or cloudy?
It's nutritional value and aesthetics. Mainly nutritional value and the flavor of it. It's kind of like anything, you boil it for too long, it's not going to taste the same. Now another little trick of the trade is, here's a question for you. Why do you use a flat, more shallow pot versus a stock pot?
For your stock.
Right, but what would be reason to use this pot?
Evaporation.
Is that what you're trying to do? Reduce it?
Not so much in this particular application. One more cooking surface areas.
Oh.
Doesn't that look nasty? So another trick of the trade, let's say you get a phone call, which has happened to everybody here, while you're cooking, and all of a sudden you think whatever it is that you're preparing or cooking has started to burn on the bottom or scorched, right? Who has that not happened to? Okay? If you suspect that happening, do not go to the pot and stir it. Take those ingredients and dump them into another pot. Is your best chance of saving it. But don't stir it. Okay? And it didn't happen to us here today, but that's just the beginning stage of what can happen. Okay, where it just starts sticking on the bottom, but we haven't actually scorched. Okay? So if you suspect that to start to happen, go to a new pot. It's gonna save you a lot of grief.
So is this shallow pan, is that a heavier gauge on the bottom or anything?
Same.
It's the same, okay.
Same. It's all clad, but gives us much more surface area for cooking.
Stainless steel also?
Yep. The all clad with having the stainless on the outside is the best type, because the stainless isn't going to nick, it's not going to pit on you like the aluminums and the copper pots. Copper pots are great for aesthetic reasons. They look pretty and they're shiny. But cooking, you have to be very careful and never use a metal utensil on them because you can damage them. It's very soft metal. But if you're trying to show off your cookware, absolutely. Just use wooden spoons, or what's this called? Yes, it is. But there's a specific reason for this color handle. It's called a high temp resistant spatula. In other words, I can have it leaning up against my pot and it's not going to melt. Okay. So the other spatulas, we refer to those as Susie Homemaker spatulas.
That's what I have.
Which gives us lots of good family entertainment. So like I said, at the restaurant, we oftentimes will incorporate other seafood and fish products. Like last week, I made the chowder at the restaurant and we used rockfish instead of cod. So you can definitely do that. You just let your guests know. Our whole thing is using all Alaska products in our chowder. So after you add your stock, you want to cook it out. And can anybody tell me how you know when your roux is cooked out in your soup or sauce, whatever it is that you're making?
The way it pulls away from the edge.
I'm sorry?
What do you can do it the way it pulls away from the edge of your pot?
Not really. That's going to tell you how thick it is, how much it's thickened up. The best way to be able to tell if your roux is fully cooked out is tasting it. Okay? If you still taste the flour, then it's not cooked out. When you don't taste the flour in this, what was that?
To taste it?
Are you getting hungry? So is that what happened to the free range scales? Have those made it around?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought maybe she ate them. So did you smell this?
Mm-hmm.
How's it smell? Fishy. My wife hates that smell.
Oh, cheers.
She does.
Yeah. Oh.
You use 2 quarts of water in there then to begin with, or whatever for your recipe.
In the recipe,
It
two.
was already made in fish stock. And then you
Yeah.
added some more skin to it.
Yep. I sure did. And I did that on purpose. So I could give you that little demo.
Yeah.
Now see how that's thickened up? See how the fish is cooked? Okay. Remember, I didn't cook the fish before I put it in. Okay. Does anybody know what this is? I call this crack because it's very addictive.
What kind do you use? Do you have a brand name that you use for Cajun seasoning?
It's called Chef Rob's.
Chef Rob?
It's called
Yours.
that's what I call it, crack.
Okay.
You know how Emerald has his BAM? I got my crack.
So it's your own.
Wow, I wasn't going there with it. It's our house Cajun seasoning.
Oh, wow.
I'm sorry? Having my own cooking show? As soon as I find those free range scales. Because I think that'll make it a hit. I'll be able to get on the Food Network. Yeah. So I'm gonna let you all pass this around. So you can smell. Try to guess what's in there.
Do you use that on like blackened redfish or blackened snapper or something?
If we served black and redfish up here in our great state of Alaska, but I've never seen redfish.
Well, I say redfish.
But when I was
snapper.
in Kansas City, Kansas, I worked at Cafe Fedora's, and we would literally sell 300 orders of black and redfish a night for dinner. It was.
You can make blackened halibut the same way. It's
You're quick. Yes, you can.
So do you use that same seasoning mixture on your blackened fish?
Yes,
Okay.
I use my crack on everything. No, not everything. It's not in our junkyard cookies or our brownies or our very berry oatmeal cookies or our chocolate chip cookies. We bake our own cookies and brownies. We bake our own focaccia because none of the bakeries here in town make a true focaccia. And we use the focaccia for our panini sandwiches. Does anybody know what a focaccia is? I'm sorry?
What is it?
That was my question. Does anybody know what it is? It's an Italian flatbread.
Is it traditionally yeasted?
Very little. Very little.
Baking powder.
Just a little bit. No baking powder. Just a little bit of yeast, a little bit of salt, a little bit of actually no sugar. Just a little bit of salt. Because there's enough sugar in the flour for it to, because you don't want it to come up like that. So when we bake it, it's typically about that thick at the most. But we use that to make our paninis, which is panini is a classical Italian style sandwich, and it's the bread has cheese on each side, and then whatever ingredients you want to put in between. You can put smoked turkey and bacon, tomatoes, caramelized onions, and you grill that on each side, and we cut it in half, we serve it that way.
Cheese is on the outside? Did you say?
Pay attention, will you?
On each side of both pieces of bread.
Not each side of the bread. How do you grill it with the cheese on it?
That's why I thought you said it was on this side. Is how are you going to grill it with cheese on the outside?
We slice the bread in half. Okay, let me go slowly. We slice the bread in half.
Your big thick slice that you had.
No, it's not big thick. Come on.
You said it was about this thick. when you baked
No,
it.
it's not that thick. It's this thick.
Okay.
At the most.
That-
Does somebody want to help her out?
I'm helping.
Are you? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Who has your crack? It never made it back.
Do I have to answer that right now? Do you realize we're on live TV? Hopefully it's not crack.
It's not crack, but have
Okay.
each lump.
Do you butter the outside of your panini before you put it in the grill?
No.
Oh, you don't?
And there's no cheese on the outside of it either.
I understand that.
I don't know. I'll let her be the judge of that. I don't have my crack back yet, so I can't add more. So, have you found it yet?
Well, the lady, she finding it.
Okay. I hope there's some left for you.
I just want to smell it. I want it.
I appreciate that visual.
What's the smoky scent in there? This.
It's part of his trade secret.
You smell it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll figure it out, but it would be easier if you just told me.
Yep. You're absolutely right. I don't share my crack with everybody, though.
Smoked paprika.
Was that a question or a statement?
That was a question.
Oh.
No.
Have you ever actually tried to smoke paprika?
No.
You
I
wrap
buy
it
it
in
in a
banana.
jar.
Oh, okay.
Over at 17 and Spice.
I was just checking. I actually had somebody answer yes.
Oh.
I was like, how do you do that?
I like you. The smell of your crack.
Why don't you just tell the whole world that you like that? Yeah, see, he's smart. He's staying out of the whole conversation. Okay, what is this? I'm sorry? I was asking the free range.
Well, I wondered if that was altered smoked sauce in the crack.
You was wondering what?
If in the cracks, if it was altered smoked sauce.
No.
Somebody else in turn to try to figure it out.
Do you sell your Cajun spice?
I'm sorry?
Do you sell your Cajun spice?
Not currently. She's still explaining the whole panini process.
No,
to her.
we're way past that.
We're
We're
working
on
on the
smoked
smoke.
Oh, okay.
We've got lots of options.
I'm sure you do. Sitting next to her.
But she's a Cajun cook, so she really.
I've heard that from Louisiana.
Louisiana. It's not Louisiana.
Okay.
That's another place.
Sorry, I blew up.
Altogether.
That is another place,
Yes, it is.
especially during Mardi Gras.
Yes.
So, can anybody smell this?
What?
Is the crack still going around?
It is. I'm trying to figure out your recipe.
Okay. There is 19 different ingredients in it. I can tell you that.
Wow.
So do you sell that in the restaurant inside of the spice?
My crack? Not currently.
Where do you buy a lot like that? Metro.
From a restaurant. Actually, this particular pot,
What do you call that kind of pot? A short stock pot.
this is called a rondeau.
That's a run.
Oh.
Okay, so the tall one is the stock.
Oh.
Okay, I was gonna ask you what the tall one is. It looks like fondue.
This looks like fondue?
No.
Rondu.
I said rondu, fondue, and you called it a rondo.
It's kind of like my crack, your crack. Everybody has a different.
So where do you get it? That was the question.
This particular one this series was made in France. You can buy it, probably special order from Bar Green Ellenson. That's downtown, or Anchorage Restaurant Supply Store. But all the cookware that we use is commercial. We don't buy the Susie Homemaker stuff because it wouldn't hold up to the abuse that happens in a commercial kitchen. So do you want to pass around the stock pot? Or are you all good? What's that? We're pretty close. Just what I'm doing now is just letting the roux cook out a little bit more. Then I'll finish it with heavy cream. Again, it gives it that richness, the fat to it. I do need a little bit more of that crack once y'all are done with it. I'll save some for whoever didn't get a chance to check it out. I don't know how far she would have gotten. All eyes were on her.
Grab her.
Why is there less than what there was when I passed it out?
Maybe you put some in more than you thought you had.
I have to check everybody's nostrils as they're walking out the door.
So you want to do another drawing?
Sure.
Do we what? Didn't hear what she said.
We're going to do another drawing. Do another drawing
Oh, yeah.
while we're waiting?
Yes. So whenever you're cooking out the flour, you want to never boil it. Just bring it to a simmer and let it simmer. If you boil it, the same thing will happen. Eventually, those fat molecules that are binded with the flour, the grain, the wheat, will expand to the point where they'll burst. Once they burst, then they release the liquid, and you have what's called a broken sauce or a broken soup.
Then your fat all floats to the top.
Sorry?
Then your fat all just floats to the top.
Yes. So that's happened to you.
Yes, it has. How to do that?
And what did you do to fix that?
Throw it away and start over. Can you fix it? Oh, how do you fix it? Good idea, because I have done that.
So if that happens to you, you make what's called a whitewash
Okay.
or a slurry. Have any of you heard of that?
No.
A whitewash or a slurry? It's nothing more than water and flour. You don't need to add the fat because you already have,
Lots
what
of
we're
fat.
talking about is a broken sauce
Right.
where the fat has floated to the top. Has that happened to anybody? So make a whitewash or a slurry and stir that in. You're
Just like
adding
you-
more
Just
flour.
like you thicken stock for gravy.
Yeah,
Oh.
you add that in. Now you have more flour that will absorb that fat. Okay.
And then you have to continue cooking it to get rid of the flour.
Flowers.
Well, you want to bring it up and be careful again not to get it boiling or too hot.
Simmer.
Just let it simmer and cook out. But this way you're not having to throw it out and start all over. Because a lot of times you have to go back to the store to do that. And when it's during the holidays, you definitely don't want to do that. Okay. So any other questions? Comments? Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry? There's salmon in your freezer? That's good. Okay, you can. Yeah. Yeah. Is the skin still on? Okay. You can do that. Did you scale it? No, let it thaw out and then skin it, and you can make your stock of the salmon skin. You know, you need bones. Another idea too is you can, some people like to take and trim the belly off, and you can just put the belly and use that to make your stock as well. With the skin, you're going to get more flavor, more fat. So if you're afraid that you don't have very much skin or bones to use, that's something that you can use is the belly. It's okay, I'm stirring this again, right? No, we have at the restaurant, we have different burgers that we make. We press our own patties, season our own patties, and then we also feature Alaska salmon and cod. We often at times have a barbecue brisket that we feature as a special. We slow roast the brisket over 20 hours. And it's served with our apple gastrique barbecue sauce that we make in-house as well. And it's the apple gastrique is nothing more than apple juice that we've reduced down to a syrupy consistency, so the flavor is super, super intense. Then we add a few other flavors, a little crack, and make our barbecue sauce. But it's a homemade barbecue sauce. You're not going to find nothing in town similar to it. And we serve that on we actually have a barbecue bacon cheddar burger. We also have on our dinner menu St. Louis style barbecue ribs that are also slow roasted overnight. So who's all ready for some chowder?
Wow, shucks, we got a whole pot for ourselves.
I know.
You guys want some of this stuff here?
Yeah.
It looks awesome.
It really isn't too good.
Do we just smoke? Yeah. Trust me, you don't want the big one. You want the big one? Sure. We do short runs. You get a lot of these on there. See my hand. Did you grab a small? There's more than So does anybody have any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. I have some salmon that was given to me, but they de-skinned it.
Okay.
Can I still grill it? If I put oil on, say, on both sides?
You can. You can still grill it. I would recommend pan searing it instead of grilling it.
Okay.
What I would do is take it and let it thaw out, and then dredge it in a little seasoned flour, and have a pan hot with some hot oil in there or butter, and pan sear your salmon. Again, it'll lock it in. When after salmon's been frozen, it's just not quite the same as what the fresh is. But that would guarantee that it would be much more moist. I got it from 10th and M, which they don't always have fresh salmon. It just depends. You have to be careful with where you buy salmon around town, and I only say that because a lot of the sushi restaurants, which has anybody not seen a sushi restaurant in Anchorage? They predominantly, I would have to say 98% of them use Atlantic salmon for their sushi. First reason is because it's cheaper. The other reason is because for them to serve salmon as for sushi or sashimi, it has to be frozen. So they're going to pay a lot less money for the Atlantic salmon than they are for the Alaskan.
Isn't mostly Atlantic salmon farm salmon now?
I'm sorry?
Is mostly Atlantic salmon farm salmon now?
All of it's farmed.
And I know there's a lot out of Chile.
That comes up here.
Oh yes, I know. Yeah.
Is farmed. On the East Coast in the Great Lake region, it is possible to get fresh Atlantic salmon, but there's no reason for them to send it up here.
No.
Because I'm not going to buy it.
Remember when Costco never served Alaska salmon?
I'm sorry?
I remember when Costco never sold Alaska salmon.
Right. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Now, if you're going to use mussels or clams, there's two ways you can do it. You can clean your mussels and your clams and serve them, cook them in your chowder. Another idea, and this just kind of rolled into my head, for presentation purposes, when you're at this point, you can add them still in the shell after they've been purged, obviously, but in their shell, and cook them have them in there until they open up. And then you've got a nice presentation. And a lot of flavor as well.
Can I ask you something? And I may have just missed it. When you were talking about the garlic pudding of the salmon, and you said like 2.5 or 3 minutes on the actual meat side and searing it, and then over on the other side. Is
Well, it depends on the thickness of your fish, and then if you have it on the high intense heat, like I was explaining to that gentleman back there, if you have it on the high intense heat so that you sear your salmon. It really depends on your grill, whether if it's a gas, a mesquite, a charcoal. With your gas, you have more of an even heat, but even with gas grills, you have your hot spots and your cold spots. So the trick is to keep an eye on your fish. Use a spatula, just lift up the one edge. If it's still sticking to the grill, it's not seared. But once it comes away from the grill, as long as you used oil, once it comes away from the grill, then it's seared. So you can do that. That would help.
The chowder is edible.
It's delicious.
She didn't say that about my crack earlier.
Okay, what's in the crack?
Crack. 19 different ingredients. Herbs and seasonings.
What do you serve it with? What kind of bread?
I'm sorry?
What, do you use bread or oyster crackers or?
The chowder?
Yeah, what do you serve it with?
At the restaurant, we currently just do crackers. We're playing around with an idea of a bread. We do. We're also thinking about serving it with our focaccia bread.
Yeah, focaccia bread with some herbs on it would be perfect.
Yeah, we just have a little basil in our focaccia.
Very good.
But any type of cracker or bread. We also, for breakfast, we serve 6 different types of eggs Benedict. And we make our own hollandaise sauce.
Let's see here.
This side, did you count this side?
Yeah, they already are.
Is it already?
Yeah, they already. She already got them first. What is it at 20 more? Yeah, this looks good. My wife doesn't know she's missing. She doesn't do seafood.
What's that?
My wife doesn't do seafood.
You're not gonna run out.
Yeah, my wife doesn't like salmon.
Yeah, same thing. I'm like, you know what?
Yeah. And we have beer and wine at the restaurant as well.
So how do you find your Facebook page? I'm not a real Facebook page.
Sizzlin Cafe.
This is on the page.
Yep.
Say add your friend or whatever.
Yep. Like us, and
Okay.
you'll we post updates, pictures, menu changes,
What's a junkyard?
all kinds of things.
What's a
Yeah,
junkyard?
what's the junkyard cookie?
What's a junkyard cookie? It's chocolate chips, almonds, walnuts, and coconut.
Yeah.
All in one cookie.
That'd be good.
So you can't be allergic to nuts. And then our brownies have no nuts in them, but there's 3 different types of chocolate. Guittard white chocolate, bittersweet dark chocolate, and a milk chocolate. And in the whole batch that we make, which produces 64 brownies, there's only 2 pounds of flour. So does that tell you how much?
Mostly chocolate.
That's why they're called chocolate lover brownies.
Just make sure, has everyone gotten some samples? Want to make sure we haven't missed anyone?
There's a couple extra.
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry?
The melted scales.
Good. Actually, we need to start calling those our free range scales.
Cruelty free.
You can charge twice as much for it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, well, don't leave yet, because I had to put gloves on. I got the winner in my pocket.
Oh yep, we got more raffle.
Yep. It was drawn already. Stephanie Reese.
Cool.
Thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you very much.
On the 15th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great.
Who's going to be here on the 15th?
Great show.
Let me take a look at the
Thank
schedule real quick.
Okay.
Thank you.
Because I got my fish.
Yes, ma'am.